December 29, 1972, an ultra-advanced airliner descends into darkness above the Everglades. Its fate sealed not by pilot error, but by a hidden gamble in its engineering DNA. Lockheed's L-1011 promised flawless flight by curving its third engine deep into the tail, a move whispered to save fuel and win the skies. Instead, this single design choice triggered delays, bankruptcy, and $2.5 billion in losses that erased Lockheed from commercial aviation. What unseen forces made perfection such a fatal flaw? And how did one curved intake shape the future of every airline you know? Let's uncover how ambition destroyed a giant. R.H. Whitford stood at the center of Lockheed's aerodynamic ambitions, convinced that the future of wide-body jets depended on cleaner airflow and sharper fuel efficiency. In the late 1960s, as airlines demanded more power with less drag, Whitford and his team faced a choice: follow McDonnell Douglas and mount the third engine straight through the tail, or attempt something no commercial jet had ever done. The S-duct, with its elegant curve weaving deep into the TriStar's tail, promised a leap ahead, a design that would keep the engine intake flush with the fuselage, smoothing the flow of air and reducing the turbulence that plagued rival trijets. Lockheed's calculations projected a fuel savings of 2 to 3% over the DC-10's more conventional setup. For airlines, that meant millions of dollars trimmed from operating costs across thousands of flights each year. The S-duct also allowed for a lower tail profile, improving stability and offering better short-field performance, a key selling point for carriers flying into busy or challenging airports. Whitford's 1968 memos argued that the supercritical airflow delivered by this design would give the TriStar a technical edge that no competitor could match. The curved intake was not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It was a statement of intent, a belief that precision engineering could outpace market shortcuts. Lockheed's wind tunnel tests showed the S-duct could maintain high-pressure recovery, supporting the RB211 engine's advanced three-spool architecture. Where the DC-10's straight-through mount sacrificed efficiency for simplicity, the TriStar's S-duct chased perfection, aiming to squeeze every possible advantage from the air itself. In those early days, the promise of aerodynamic purity made the risks feel worth taking. Titanium sheets arrived at the Burbank plant in crates marked with warning tags: handle with care, sub-millimeter tolerance required. The S-duct was no ordinary assembly. Each curve demanded precision down to 0.008 of an inch. Tooling teams spent extra weeks shaping and reshaping the duct's complex bends, then waiting for jigs to be recalibrated after every minuscule deviation. Inspection logs from 1969 list entire sections set aside for rework. Some returned to the forming shop 3 or 4 times before passing final checks. The penalty for a hairline misalignment was a ripple in airflow, which would erase any performance gain promised on paper. Production managers flagged the mounting backlog in weekly reports. One sequence in the tooling log shows a 6-week slip traced directly to the S-duct's titanium skin, where a single change order for a tighter bend radius triggered a cascade of delays. Whitford's memos from that spring, now preserved in Lockheed's archives, reveal mounting concern. Current fabrication rate unsustainable. Recommend risk review. The cost grew with every hour spent on the line. Fabrication expenses for the S-duct ran 30 to 40% over bid, pushing the unit cost from $900,000 to nearly $1.2 million. Engineers joked about the S-duct blues as they watched delivery targets slip further out of reach. Each delay in the tail assembly forced a reshuffle of the entire production schedule, leaving half-finished fuselages waiting for their missing piece. For all its aerodynamic elegance, the S-duct's perfection came at a price that could be measured in months and millions. The promise of the TriStar's S-duct hinged on a single, extraordinary engine, the Rolls-Royce RB211. This was not just another jet turbine. Its three-spool design, stacking low, intermediate, and high-pressure compressors on separate shafts, allowed each stage to spin at its own optimal speed. The result was a leap in efficiency, more thrust from less fuel, with smoother power delivery at every altitude. Lockheed's engineers saw the RB211's compact profile as the perfect match for their curved duct. The engine's smaller diameter meant the S-duct could be tighter, lighter, and more aerodynamic than any rival setup. But the real gamble came with the fan blades. Rolls-Royce bet everything on high-Y fill, a carbon fiber composite never before used in a commercial engine. High-Y fill blades weighed 30% less than titanium, shaving hundreds of pounds off each nacelle. For Lockheed, that was the difference between meeting strict weight targets and falling behind the DC-10. Early tests showed the blades could survive the punishing speeds and temperatures at the heart of the engine, at least in theory. In practice, every pound saved translated to greater range, more payload, and lower operating costs, numbers that looked irresistible to airlines comparing spreadsheets. The RB211 was also quieter, with a bypass ratio that muffled the roar of takeoff and landing. Lockheed's sales teams touted the engine's advanced technology as a guarantee of future proofing, lower emissions, less noise, and the efficiency to weather the oil shocks of the 1970s. On paper, the TriStar's propulsion system was a marvel, a union of British engineering daring and American aerodynamic ambition. In those early days, the RB211 seemed to unlock the full potential of the S-duct, promising a jet that could outfly, outlast, and outsell anything else in the sky. In May 1970, a warning shot no one at Lockheed or Rolls-Royce could ignore. During a routine certification test, a high-fill carbon fiber fan blade shattered under the force of a simulated bird strike. Engineers watched as years of research splintered in seconds, the promise of lighter, stronger engines undone by a single flaw. Reverting to titanium solved the immediate safety risk, but added weight, time, and cost, pressure mounting as delivery deadlines loomed. By early 1971, the numbers no longer worked. Rolls-Royce, locked into a fixed-price contract and bleeding cash with every failed test, had no way out. On February 4, 1971, the company entered receivership. For Lockheed, the impact was immediate and paralyzing. 4 unfinished TriStars sat idle on the Burbank assembly line, their tails gaping open, waiting for engines that might never arrive. Production halted across the program within 48 hours. Workers were sent home. The dream of a technical masterpiece turned overnight into an industrial emergency. Internal memos from Lockheed's crisis meetings capture the desperation. Requests for government intervention, urgent calls to Washington and London, and mounting fears that the entire program could collapse. The United Kingdom government stepped in with £170 million to nationalize Rolls-Royce, while the United States guaranteed $250 million in loans to keep Lockheed afloat. But no amount of money could buy back lost time. The L-1011 program was frozen for 18 months, its fate suspended while competitors moved ahead. Airlines, once eager for the TriStar's promise, now weighed the risk of a plane with no engines and a future clouded by uncertainty. Procurement teams at major airlines found themselves rewriting their calculations as the TriStar's delays dragged on. Letters from launch customers began arriving at Lockheed's offices, each one more cautious than the last. Executives at Eastern and Delta, once eager for the promise of a perfect wide-body, now questioned whether the aircraft they had ordered would ever meet the performance guarantees written into their contracts. The production freeze left airlines exposed, unable to plan new routes or retire aging fleets as expected. For every month The RB211 sat idle. The DC-10 added another delivery, another satisfied customer. Weight overruns, sometimes as much as 2,500 to 4,000 pounds above contract limits, sparked tense negotiations. Procurement officers pressed for compensation or threatened to cancel outright. The logic was simple. A plane that arrived late and heavy was a plane that could not pay for itself. For Lockheed, each withdrawn commitment meant one step further from financial recovery, and one more reason for airlines to hedge their bets elsewhere. Inside Lockheed's boardroom, the numbers stripped away any hope of recovery. Finance leaders reviewed the latest production tallies. Only 250 TriStars had rolled off the line. Half the 500 needed just to break even. Each undelivered aircraft widened the gulf between projected revenue and the mounting costs that had piled up since the first titanium curve was bent. By the time the program closed, losses neared $2.5 billion, a figure that dwarfed even the boldest early forecasts. Board minutes from 1973 captured the mood. No amount of engineering brilliance could fill the gap left by missed orders and shrinking market share. The realization settled in quietly, but completely. Lockheed's commercial aviation dream had become a financial dead end. Today, the dominance of Boeing and Airbus traces back to one fateful engineering gamble. Perfection alone never guarantees survival. Timing, risk, and resilience decide who flies and who falls. In aviation and business, even a single curve can redraw the horizon. What risks do we still underestimate?